Hey guys, and welcome back to Narcissu. So, uh, I honestly don't even remember where we left off because it's been a weekend. Ah, um, well, either way, let's just jump right back into it. Of course, it may well have been that this kind of thing was absolutely common knowledge that I just didn't have. But she'd proven that she was an expert on these roads not so long ago. Oh, right. Last episode, we were trying to make our way to, like, some island or something, and, like, our little friend knew where it was, and we didn't know what we were doing. So, yeah. Having been caught by surprise twice now, I took out the vehicle specification from the glove compartment. And of course, you know the make and model of this car as well, don't you? Is that a question? You can think of this as a quiz if you want. Integra Type R Coupe. Correct, and the specs? 99 model year, 5-speed, max 200 HP. I had no expectation that I had no expectation that she'd actually answer. I almost involuntarily followed along in the vehicle spec sheet as she rattled off figures with total disinterest. Length 4,380 with 1,695. Engine displacement 1,797 cc. Do you want me to go on? No, it's alright, you're correct. I put the vehicle spec sheet back in its place. I couldn't believe my ears, but she'd nailed every single specification. I didn't think one could just memorize these things, and I couldn't even venture a guess as to why she had. But right before my eyes, she had gotten every single spec correct. And thinking back on the roads and flowers, I was getting the impression that she knew a lot about a lot. Hey, just why do you know so much about everything? It's nothing. It's just that I'm older than you. And with that bare response... Oh wait, that was her, whoops. She went back to her usual silence. With her staring out of the window again, I didn't find myself able to throw any more questions at her. Older. It really didn't look that way at all, but this was something she'd said before too. Her name was Setsumi. Her blood type was O. Those were written on her white ID bracelet. I cannot talk today. There was very little indication to show me that she was older than me at all. Around when the sun started peeking out from under the clouds. The silver coupe speeding along. No destination, no place to go. Just running forward. No more worries about gasoline, but no more money either. Only about 2,000 yen left. Only enough for 3 to 4 more days at most of convenience store food. Alright, so now what do you want to do? I have no idea what you mean by that. I mean that we have no money left. And so? Look, her appearance as unchanging as ever. And this conversation we were having while eating rice balls bought at a convenience store not long ago. Finally, the fact that even if we were driving along like this, we were using up gasoline little by little. Maybe it might have been better to just stay without doing anything at all. But it was impossible for me to stay still without doing anything, without shooting for anything. And I kept driving with those feelings at heart. If we just kept driving on normal highways, we'd run out of gas in about 3 days. Likewise, we only had enough for 3 to 4 days worth of food with the 2,000 yen we had left. We were obviously going to become too poor to do anything soon enough. Hey, do you want to try going to this Awaji Island? No reply. She just kept staring out the window as per usual. I think I might want to. Why? Well, it wasn't as if we'd escaped from 7th floor with any goal or destination in mind. Because, east or west, no matter where, anything was fine with me. Maybe that's why I wanted a goal and a destination. Because anything was fine with me. Around when the daylight had given over to the darkness of the night, I had stopped the car in the parking lot of a Pachinko parlor. Obviously, I wasn't planning on winning any money though, or through Pachinko or slots. I knew that there wasn't much I could do on just 2,000 yen alone. But if I were skillful enough, I might be able to swipe 10,000 or 20,000 yen. That was my guess, based on the many times I'd been to Pachinko parlors in the past. If I only had that much, we'd be okay in the first place, and we might even be able to get to Awaji Island on that amount. And so, I told her about the plan that I had just thought up. How about it? Want to try it out? No. Okay, very well. I'd expected it, but she'd shot me down immediately. I hadn't hoped that she'd cooperate with me in the first place. And I told her about my plan as a fait accompli, but not because I wanted her to aid in it. Alright, then wait here. I got out of the car and strode into the Pachinko parlor alone. It was more crowded than I'd thought. Lots of Pachinko balls, lots of people, and more importantly, cash boxes crowded everywhere. As good a place as any. And thinking this, I headed over to the slots machine. I inspected them from the corridor for a while. And after having finished my survey, I focused on one set of machines. Lots of middle-aged salarymen, all right. Up to 4 boxes at their feet and up to 2 on racks above them. And an empty stand separating each of them. From what I'd seen before, these men hadn't come with acquaintances or friends. This satisfied the requirements. Perhaps in a place like this, no one would notice if I swiped one of those cash boxes. And in a store like this, each one probably held 20,000 yen or so. And with just that much, I just kept waiting there for one of the salarymen to go to the bathroom. After a little while, whoopsie, I accidentally skipped. But I think it said after about 30 minutes or so, a salaryman finally stood up from his seat. After I tailed him a bit to make sure he was going to the bathroom, I dashed back to the stand that he'd occupied, and watching the people who were hitting the slots and at the attendants, I slowly approached the stand. Then, so not to raise any suspicion, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, I swiped one of those cash boxes underfoot. That moment, coins scattered everywhere with a thunderous noise. I'd been meaning to pick it up. No, I really had picked it up, with my very own hands, but they were unable to bear that weight and the cash box crashed to the floor. Everyone turned in my direction to see what the commotion was all about. I got the feelings that someone was shouting. I got the feeling that someone was running toward me. But that was all behind me. I had already bolted and was less than 2 meters away from the entrance of the establishment by then. I put the engine in ignition in a hurry and floored the pedal. And when I spun the wheel to make my hasty getaway, just then, eek! I'd run against a curb or something as I turned to make my getaway. Thus the horrible crunching sound. but I accelerated onto the road before me without giving it a second thought. My suddenly constricting, out-of-breath chest and the silver coupe speeding out of the daylight and into darkness. I was concerned about the crash a little while ago, but I had to distance myself from that place, now. And soon. After 10 minutes of this, a fair distance away from that Pachinko parlor, I stopped at some roadside and started to get out to inspect the damage. Are things okay? Yeah, it doesn't look too serious. She sounded slightly worried as she called out to me. I answered her as I inspected the damage. There was just a bump in the rear fender and a small crack in the muffler. Didn't look as if there would be any problem driving like this. I let out a sigh, somewhat relieved. That sucked. I thought back at what had just happened at the Pachinko parlor. I'd slipped up there, but had I been a little more skillful, I might have pulled it off. And the reason I wasn't able to hold onto that cash box was because it had been a while since I lifted anything heavy. And if I held on to it with all my strength at the outset, I might have been able to make it. So you miscalculated. Huh? The current you can't do what the former you could have. She spoke as if she'd seen straight through me. But that kind of weight. So it's best not to think of it the same way. Perhaps she was right. I didn't want to admit how changed I was. Fair enough. I hadn't anticipated at all that I could grow this week. Then, what should I do? No answer. Eyes turned in silence toward the window to stare into the darkness, or into the dark night sky. This was probably the way she was telling me to give up. Alright, Chapter 4, The Emerald Sea. Here we go. My time at a standstill, my heart at a standstill. Days of useless trivia upon useless trivia. Days spent gazing at a map, closing my eyes, traveling through unfamiliar roads. One day, the usual monthly magazines, a photograph on a front cover drew my eyes. A female model in a showy swimsuit. I don't know why I read that as shadowy. Please excuse me. I woke up not too long ago. Provocative poses on a sandy beach. A smile captured right before the emerald sea that I had always dreamed about. She was probably my age, smiling at me happily, cheerfully with her outstanding figure. It was as if I was jealous, or it wasn't as if I was jealous or anything. I didn't own any swimsuits to begin with, and I didn't come close to having any need for them. My pajamas were quite enough for me. Oh, are we in the girls' point of view? I hope so. I'd spent so many seasons, so many white overcast skies, without the want or need to converse with anybody. I remembered that day, June of the first year of middle school, the day of my first hospitalization. I remembered having ordered a swimsuit. I remembered having done so several years ago now. That day I remembered. That swimsuit that had lost its opportunity to be used. I took that school swimsuit, new as the day I bought it, out of the drawer where it had patiently waited for years. I took off my usual pajamas and timidly put on that navy blue swimsuit. I was shocked. It had already been years, and yet it fit me as if it had been made for me that very day. And that swimsuit model was smiling at me warmly, smiling at me from the midst of the Emerald Sea, smiling at me warmly and happily with that beautiful womanly figure. It was saddening. It wasn't as if I was jealous, no. The truth was that I was probably yearning for it impossibly, stubbornly, because I knew that it was absolutely impossible. But the huge scars on my chest were telling me to just give up. My lifelong companions, my scars, were telling me to go back to my world of closed eyes. January 22nd, 2005. Around this time when the sun slowly arced down and dyed the western horizon blue or orange. Why was I saying blue? We were on the road as usual. And what should we do now? We really had no more money left to spare. Hey, as I thought upon these things, she caught me by surprise by calling out to me. Are you allowed to soak in baths? Yeah, they said that I could go ahead unless it was a long, protracted bath. I see. I'm about the same way. What she meant by allowed, and what she meant by they, was that the doctors didn't caution us against it. There had been many who had been forbidden to do so due to kidney or digestive tract issues. And now that I thought about it, her problem was probably in her circulatory system, just like me. Well, do you want to take a bath? Is that bad? No, I kind of wanted to as well. Even so, we didn't have enough money to stay at a hotel or an inn. Then, do you want to stop by a public bathhouse? Bathhouse? Yeah, we've got the money for that at least. No, it's fine. What do you mean, fine? It had already been 3 days since we escaped from 7th floor. We were allowed to bathe twice a week there, and had sponge baths twice a day as well. Then again, we weren't getting very sweaty given the season, and since we were in a car, we weren't getting dirty. Could it be that it's embarrassing for you to be in a public bathhouse? Not really. Nothing like that at all. Around the time when the sun had completely disappeared and the moon waxed large in the sky, some distance away, I'd found something that looked like a school. This would have to do. I stopped the car before the gates, and then I rummaged in the back seat through the clump of clothing there. If I remembered correctly, there were about 2 to 3 towels in this heap. And then after sifting through a bunch of clothes, I found a hand towel after all. It had the legend Shiraishi construction written on it. Probably one of those appreciation gifts they gave out like candy. Alright, then wait a bit. Huh? Taking 2 towels with me, I headed towards the school. I climbed over the gates and looked around anxiously for my target. Ah, there it is! I found a water faucet station, probably for gardening use. I turned the knob and cold water poured out of the faucet. Cold water, or water cold enough to freeze me stiff. I wet the 2 towels and squeezed them out. Sorry for the wait. Here. I handed over one of the towels to her, and then I took off my sweater and started washing myself. The cold, wet towel felt pretty good against the warm heating of the car. Hey, you go ahead and clean yourself too. It feels nice and cold too. Okay. She was a little reluctant at first, but then she slowly started undoing her buttons, the shirt and jeans that were all too big on her. Unlike me, she simply washed herself by retracting her hands into the shirt. Say, what is it? Don't look. Oh, sorry, that's right. She murmured with the wet towel in her hand, her clothes half on, half off. It was the first time I'd seen her look like that, a little annoyed, a little embarrassed. Inside the car, our backs turned to each other. Hey, feels pretty good, eh? Yeah. Inside the car, shrouded in the dark of the night, drying myself off, reflected in the glass of the windows, which also reflected her, with her back towards me, drying herself off just as I was. She'd taken off her shirt just as I had. I didn't mean to look, but I could see big scars on her chest. And this is where I'm gonna leave it off, because I am all out of time for this episode. So, I hope that you've enjoyed it, and if you did, please give it a big thumbs up down below. And I will see you guys in the next video. So, bye-bye.